welcome to another episode of Heat Check. We have a great episode lined up for you guys today, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. I'm joined by
Ethan Rue,
Joey Bohley,
Brandon LaRocco,
Ethan Dewald,
and I'm Abhishek Goel. Let's hit it. All right. So the first question that we will be asking ourselves today is involves a little bit of reflection, maybe a trip down memory lane, some nostalgia. The first question we're going to ask is looking at the best sports moments that we've witnessed live. Now, we've all seen some of the greatest sports moments throughout our lives on TV, of course. You know, national TV shows it and it's get millions and millions of views. But something that I think is crucial and just a different experience altogether is seeing that moment in these like great moments live, and the effect that it has on people. It can sometimes be very very profound and very and I think that's beautiful. So maybe we can just kind of explore some of these experiences we've had, and I'm talking about like all levels of competition too. Like we played high school sports, we played rec league. I started playing soccer when I was 5 years old, U6 Vienna youth soccer, and anything from there to like anything we've seen live, like professional sports, high school sports, whatever the case may be. So to just kind of get things started, one moment that I will always remember that I was a part of was in high school when I scored a goal on JV soccer freshman
Yes, sir! That's tough.
Yeah,
that's tough.
It was, we were playing St. Andrews, and St. Andrews JV squad was some terrible, there was some clap.
some cheeks, yeah.
And, so I didn't get in too much as a freshman on JV, I wasn't, a soccer star. I kind of played cross country the next year anyways. But, the coach sent me in and he was like, yeah, Abhishek, just go out there, get a goal, you got this, man. And I was like, all right, bet. So, the winger came down the other side. I was playing on the left, and he was playing on the right. He crosses it over. The striker, jumps up, but he just misses it. And, little freshman Abhishek just perfectly controls it, slots it home for the 6th goal of the game for us.
Really crucial goal.
Yeah, it was very crucial. I mean, the way that everyone, mobbed me, they were like, oh, shit, freshman scored, Abhishek scored. Yeah, so... Yeah, just moments like that, just put a smile on your face. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I was going to talk about the time we almost had a benches clearing brawl with another team, but
wow.
that's cool too.
Damn.
Yeah, man.
Benches clearing brawl.
I mean, yeah, so we didn't actually brawl, but the benches cleared.
Ooh.
This was in my my senior year of high school, so 2 years ago,
yeah.
A year and a half ago, and it was in the spring. I'm personally a baseball player. That's
yeah, for sure.
Just for some people who didn't already know. But yeah, we were playing this other team, and we never liked them very much. They kind of opened during my sophomore year was their first year. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there was always a little bit of animosity. They were the new school. They took a couple of our players, this, that, and the other. And so it was actually a pretty close game. And I think we had runners on first and second or something. We had a runner on second base. And there was a base hit in the outfield. Dude from second, he was a big dude. Him and I didn't really get along. That's a different story. But he was a pretty big dude. So he comes barreling around third, and he's hauling ass.
Yeah.
And throw comes in, catcher has it right in front of the plate, and he just gets absolutely smacked by this. Oh. I mean, at this time he was probably 6'1", 175. So I mean, he's pretty big for a high school baseball player. And he just absolutely barreled. He bowled him over. And he's laying down. And let me just say, this catcher was a little bitch. We all knew that he was a little bitch.
Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna put him on blast or anything, but he was a bitch. Yeah. And so he gets up. He's getting all. He's like, "It was a big idea, bro." All this shit. And then so we start kind of jawing back and forth the other day. They're like, "Oh, you can't do that." We're like, "Yeah, it's our days." And this. And so we're all kind of standing out in front of the dugout. I was out in front. I was kind of holding my boys back a little bit because I was I wasn't trying to I wasn't personally trying to throw hands, but I knew that if like my team threw hands, I was going to be throwing hands.
Well, yeah, I feel like that's a quintessential part of the team sport.
I mean,
you have your boys' backs, you know.
Yeah.
Like I was about to smoke, but like
you aren't actively seeking the
I
smoke.
wasn't actually
Yeah.
like if it came down to the smoke, they were going to get the smoke. But like
Joey was a byproduct of the
I'm no, all right, look. Let me give you a little bit more context about my role on this team. We played like 20 games. I was a pitcher. That's all I did. I threw like 10 innings the entire year. I did a lot of hanging around on the bench.
Yeah.
I was a big morale guy.
Yeah.
Big,
He was Jared Dudley.
yeah. I was a big veteran presence in the clubhouse. That was kind of like my thing.
Yeah,
I was like
for sure.
the 40-year-old relief pitchers, just kind of eating innings. But yeah, I was holding back some of our guys. Because, like, I mean, if anyone's get suspended, I'm going to get suspended because I'm not going to play anyway. So, like, I need, like, these other guys who are, like, actually, like, good and stuff to, like, not get suspended.
Sure.
And so they come out, they, like, get almost to, like, home plate. And eventually our coaches kind of, like, they simmered the situation down. And then after that, one of their coaches actually got ejected, their first base coach, because that was the third out of the inning. So they came out to hit. We were in the first base dugout. So their first base coach came out, and I was standing like back towards the end of the dugout, like trying to just help everything like dissipate. And two of our assistant coaches were standing there, and one of them said something to it. I said something to him. I don't remember what it was, but the first base coach absolutely lost his mind. And he was going off. There were expletives going everywhere. F yous, F that, F this.
Sure.
And I guess the umpire, he wasn't hearing it, so he tossed him out of the game. Their coach is like, "Oh, he started it." Pointed at our coach. Our coach puts his hand up. He's like, "Man, I don't know what he's talking about," but he definitely started it. Like he started that. So that's pretty much what I got. I mean,
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah,
nothing wild.
kind of going off of that, Joe. It's kind of makes you feel good when the other team gets really violent.
Oh, yeah,
it makes you feel really
like
good.
we're doing something right.
Yeah, you're doing something right. Back when I was about 13, I was playing for my club soccer team, and we were defending a corner, and I think we were already up like 2-0 on this team. And I was marking this one dude who we were kind of going at it all game, like, just getting a little physical. And I'm marking him on the corner, and the ball comes in, and like I like run back with him. He's making a run towards the penalty spot. When we're running, he brings his fist up above his head, brings it down, smacks me right in the nuts. Absolute straight nut shot. I crumpled to the ground.
No.
He hit it too. Like it was good aim.
Oh, man.
And thankfully the ref saw, gave him a direct red.
Yeah.
And the dude was like, "What do you mean? I didn't do anything." I was like, "Dude, you just hit me in the nuts. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Like,
That's
not
brutal.
this
Oh my
way.
lord.
yeah. So I was feeling pretty good, like despite being on the ground in lots of pain. I was feeling pretty good about myself, being like, man, I really pissed this dude off enough to really go for the nuts. So that was a really fun moment. He refused to shake my hand at the end of the game, which also made me feel pretty good.
Yeah.
That's always a good feeling.
Yeah, it's like,
Sure.
I'm trying to be the bigger man, but you just want to touch my nuts and run away. Like, that's fine.
It's a little fruity, but
Yeah, I guess for me, I have a couple different like cool sports moments. I guess like I'll start with like the more personal ones. The first sport that I actually played like organized was actually soccer. I know I'm not like a huge fan of soccer now, but back then people I grew up with played soccer, so naturally I wanted to play it as well to be like them. And I played it and I was okay, but I had this one really good game where I scored like the score was like 3 or 4-0 us, and I scored like all the goals, so that made me feel really good about myself.
Same.
It's really cool how sports can do that for you, make you feel like you're like an important part of the team. Then the second one more recently was seeing Joey and that one dude on the rec team like have that showdown the whole game.
Yeah.
They were just going back and forth the whole time. Like Joey was flopping around, to say the least.
Yeah.
The other dude,
who got called for more fouls though? He did.
I mean, he did. Some of them were
He
deserved.
did, but you kind of went flying.
I mean, I got the call though, didn't I?
Yeah.
Isn't that what matters?
Joey threw out like the wildest flop I've seen in a minute,
Yeah.
and he got the foul.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, I mean, Joey and the guy were already in a heated like kind of exchange throughout the game, really. And I feel like the foul going against him didn't help.
He was
the
complaining
situation
to the
at all.
ref.
It was definitely. Let me just say, it was definitely a foul. But I also
embellished.
sold it.
Yeah.
There's also
a
one.
lot.
There's one where I thought you died, but you just flopped. But it was pretty convincing. Like I thought you
remember
hit your
that
head
too.
on the ground. I thought it was a wrap.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was because I just went up for like a rebound or something. Someone like knocked in the bottom of my
okay.
leg. I just kind of like helicoptered.
Yeah, I
on
thought
the
it was a
ground.
wrap for you.
And then there was another one where I landed on the ball. That felt bad.
really?
Ooh, yeah.
That felt
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
But that guy was,
Yeah.
you got that guy pretty heated. He was complaining to the refs the whole game, which, I mean, those refs weren't perfect, to say the least. Then I'll go with, actually, watching sports.
Yeah.
There's a couple years ago, back when the Giants were actually decent. I think it was the last time they went to the playoffs that season.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was game 3. It was at MetLife. The Giants versus the Saints, and it was a really close game, went down to the wire. I saw Victor Cruz get this wild diving catch. That was like the last season that he played for us. But it came down to a game-winning field goal, and I got to see the Giants win. So that was pretty cool. It would suck to go all the way to New Jersey just to see them get bodied.
Yeah.
And this one's not really live. I mean, it's on TV, but I did see the OBJ catch live, and that was really cool. That's still one of the best catches of all time. You could argue that it is the best. That's a different debate. So that was also really cool to see live. And that's it.
That's sick.
Hey, Brandon, what team was that catch against?
What team was the
OBJ catch.
It was against Dallas.
Yeah, it was against
Was
the
that,
Dallas.
was that Jeff Heath that got absolutely
No, it
torched?
was Brandon Carr.
Oh, he's
Brandon
not that
Carr
much.
got
Carr.
put on the cover of Madden, I believe,
Yeah.
for that.
Which it sucks because we ended up losing the game. So it's it was a cool catch, but it didn't really.
I
to
kept
win.
telling every after that game, I was
Yeah.
like, "Damn, did you see that catch? You must be mad." And I was like, "No,
Well, yeah,
the Cowboys won."
yeah,
There's nothing to be
that's a
mad
cool
about.
catch. But
Yeah.
who won the game?
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, I had to convince people that the Cowboys won that game for
Yeah.
the next 2
You had
months
to
or
hush 'em
so.
down.
Yeah.
All right, let's relax.
Yeah. In a similar vein, the I have to say the coolest professional sporting event I went to was my first hockey game, and it was looking back on it, I really can't believe this was my first hockey game.
Yeah, it's very wild. It's like an all-time hockey game.
Yeah, it's so 2 of the greatest hockey players to ever do it. I'm a huge Washington Capitals fan, full disclosure. Alexander Ovechkin, and they were playing the Pittsburgh Penguins in the playoffs. Actually, I believe it was a game 3, game 5. I don't know.
We can
which
look it
one.
up.
Yeah, it was one of those, but maybe it was game 2. Anyways, but my dad got tickets for the game, and so I hadn't been to a hockey game yet, and I was super excited about the Caps. So we go, and of course, Alexander Ovechkin has 2 goals. He had one just amazing scorcher that just went over Marc-Andre Fleury's glove side. That I'll always remember that in the celebration. And it turns out that Sidney Crosby scored a hat trick that game. I remember I didn't know that until the next morning because being in the then Verizon Center, no one was really celebrating that hat trick too much, and I couldn't even believe they scored 3. And so then the game went to overtime, and Alexander Ovechkin scored his 3rd, the game winner, to get his hat trick there too. So it was really probably one of the greatest Capitals games in history. Besides 2 of the other ones that I'm going to mention for the Capitals. But that being my first game that's a special memory, and I think that's a dope thing to witness. 2 of the greatest in the sport. And then the other 2 would also have to be in Capitals playoff runs. I went to game 5 between the Penguins again and the Capitals during the Capitals Stanley Cup run, and it was a very intense game, but the Capitals kind of had the Penguins' number, and having seen just 10 years of the Penguins just bouncing the Caps from the playoffs, and the Capitals coming up short in the second round, the series was tied 2-2, and it got back to Washington, and we won definitively. It was 6-3 or something like that. And we just dominated them from beginning to end. So, seeing that's kind of when I knew, this team's different, this team's special. And, I got to see the, game, I'm trying to remember now, game 4 of the Stanley Cup, final, and the Capitals won that one by another, big score. Everyone was scoring in that game. Devontae Smith-Pelly, Ovi, Kuzi, the whole company. So seeing that and seeing that team, I do think that championships in sports are, another. They kind of take on like a almost like a mystic nature. They're really like supernatural in some kind of form because you get to witness that and like seeing like them go. Especially the closer you are with the team, the more impactful it is, and the more you have with them. But those can be really special and fun to watch.
Yeah. So that game was May 4th, 2009.
Yeah,
it was Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Semis. The Caps actually, that was for them to go up 2-0 in that series, which they ended up losing in 7.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the year that the Penguins rematched with the Red Wings and actually beat the Red Wings.
Yeah, the Penguins won, right?
Yeah, the Red Wings won it in 2008. My Red Wings won in 2008. That was extremely lit.
Yeah.
And then they lost to the Penguins in the rematch in 2009.
Mm-hmm. Two great teams, by the way. Two great teams.
Yeah.
I haven't necessarily been to any professional sporting events ever, so unfortunately I don't have any of those cool stories. Obviously I've seen many a moment on national television, such as, like mentioned earlier, the OBJ catch, and as much as it sickens me to say it, the Patriots comeback in Super Bowl 52, that I'm still sick to this day. But that, you have to admit, like, from an objective standpoint, that was, like, a godlike tier comeback.
Yeah,
and I don't think we'll ever see anything like that in sports again. So, as much as I hate to say it, that was amazing. And I do think that, in the end, I'm privileged to be able to see something like that, even if it's just on television.
For sure.
As far as, like, favorite personal moments from sports... Again, I'm an umpire. I've umpired baseball now for 7 years. So I've seen my fair share of amazing plays. I've seen Little League kids make godsend plays that I've never, ever seen anyone else complete. I mean, we're talking like layout grabs from shortstop, diving to third, catching it in the air, glove side, and then somehow contorting your body around to throw a kid out at first before you hit the ground. I still don't know how this kid did it, but I mean, I'll never see something like that again. And then as far as my own personal, the two big ones I have really in my mind are my first and only actual home run. We had just put in a new scoreboard on our field. It was like and I hit the scoreboard, and coach was jokingly not very pleased about that. I put a dent in his brand new scoreboard, and it's still there. Every time we would practice, like the next 2 years, I'd go walk out to the scoreboard and I'd point up at my hole that I left in there, right underneath the S in hits, and then I'd walk right back to center field where I was playing. So that was kind of just a fun little tradition of mine.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And then my first touchdown from playing football in high school as well, I was playing outside linebacker, and this was when I was in Massachusetts. I was outside linebacker, and the previous play I had sacked the quarterback on a blitz, and the very next I dropped back, and this kid threw up an absolute beach ball of a pass. I mean, this team ran 4 plays: run right, run left, run up the middle, and a play action pass. Like, that was it. That was all they did. So he threw the pass. I knew where he was going because, like, I had watched film. I basically just went and stood under the spot and then had to out jump, like, this just little running back that was supposed to try and catch the ball. Here's me, like, 6 foot next to this, like, 5'5" kid. It was kind of unfair at the time, I realized, but
Yeah.
But ran it back 70 yards to the house, so you know,
That's tough.
feeling
That's very
good about
tough.
that one.
That's
so
very tough.
That's and I've had several other like high school football games that I've just had like 100-yard rushing games,
Yeah.
which you feel really good after the fact. Like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that was my first year playing football ever, and I'm already getting 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's insane. So,
Yeah, that
it's
is
just
insane.
fun things like that you don't really think about much, except for when you really look back at it and you realize how much those moments mean to you. Like, damn, that was fun. Like,
Yeah.
So good times.
Yeah, so I mean that's really cool. I wish I had cool stories like that.
Yeah.
I mean I do have stories, but they're not that cool. But like my first pitching win in high school was the same sort of thing. We were playing in a Like, it was like a spring break tournament, and it was like our 5th game of the year, and I was getting frustrated. I was like, I haven't pitched yet. Like, when am I going to pitch? And, like, the day, literally, like, an hour before I was going to show up to the field, and I was going to talk to my coach that day, like, yo, man, like, I need to do something. He texted me, he said, like, yep, you're on the bump today. You're starting on the bump. And I was like, all right, let's do it. I went out there against a team they were ranked 7th in the area at the time. We have, there's, like, a magazine in Northern Virginia that does a bunch of rankings, and they were 7th at that time. And I went out there for 4 innings, threw like 44 pitches, 4 Ks, 1 walk, 1 hit. Ooh. And we went on to get that dub. There was also, in that game, one of the scariest moments of my entire life. There was a JMU commit, a future JMU commit. He wasn't a JMU commit yet, but he is now. He's there now. His name is Joe Vogatsky, went to Kettle Run, and I threw a fastball right down the middle. And when I tell you that he hit this thing on the screws, it was a line drive right at me. My entire life's, like, everything slowed down. And I reached my left hand out with my glove on, and I really felt like I was pushing through, like, some sort of, like, jello or something. And everything slowed down, and I was pushing, and I felt it hit my glove, and my entire arm flew back. But then I look, and the ball was right there, and I was like, let's go with that. That was the 3rd out of the inning. I was so hyped. Wow. I threw the ball up in the air, ran off the field, and I was like, So that was probably my peak moment. That was peak Joey right there. Peak Joey.
Yeah. Ethan, when you brought up, like, the Patriots comeback, it reminded me. I don't know how I forgot about it last year, watching the Clippers playoff run and watching the 31-point comeback against Golden State. That, I remember feeling a little emotional after that game. It's weird. I'm not even playing, but, like, when you support a team for so long, and to have everybody clown you about it, and everybody saying that we're getting swept by Golden State, and just to see, like, even, like, you know, towards halftime, I was contemplating turning off the game, and it was always like, all right, you know, if they get up by 25 or whatever, I'll just turn it off, and then it's like, all right, you know what, if they get up by 35, I'll turn it off, and that's when they started to come back, and it was really cool to see a team that you like play so hard and have so many likable guys on the team. And come out with a victory. And you know damn well that I was rocking the Clippers hoodie the next day, walking into sports and econ.
Yeah, those are the days.
Yeah, bringing up something Joey said reminded me of, this is another one of those things that, like, you can't believe you forget it, but at the time it was, like, everything. I used to pitch until I messed my shoulder up. I was a pitcher, and this one team I was playing on, I was always, there was this one coach when I was playing in Massachusetts that he kept pulling me up to the higher level team just because of my size. I had a huge size advantage over a lot of people because I hit my spurt early. And so I only played for, like, this one coach for many, many years. And he put me on the mound. It was game 2 of a 3-game series in the playoffs, and it was game 2. And this was a team that was second in the division. We were first. And so it was a tough matchup. They were always really good. And whoever won was going on to play, like, the number 1, like, in the area, which was an actual professional team. We all really, truly believed it. But he started me on the mound, and I figured that my job normally was get up there, throw hard, throw fast, get through, like, 5 innings, and then they'll put someone else on there to finish it. That's always, like, what I had been. I'd always been either a reliever or a starter, but never anything more than those 2 things. I was never put in the middle. I was always the end or the start. And he put me up there, and I don't know how I did it, but that was the best game I think I've ever pitched. I pitched a full game, 7 innings.
Sir.
Only allowed 2 hits.
Sir.
We won 12-2. And after a full 7, it was crazy. I don't know how we got that. In hindsight, I don't know how we scored that many runs, but that was a huge dub for me. Got a game ball from that. The funny thing was it was 4th of July night. I had been over at my family had been over at a friend's house, and we went to the game. And I was on the mound, and in the middle of my windup, the fireworks start going off.
Oh,
which try and
tough.
keep your cool
Yeah.
and not balk on the mound when you've got fireworks going off behind you. That was tough. So, but that was kind of a fun with the fireworks and the pitching. That was definitely I've never been able to recreate that, and so that was huge. But then reminding also about the oh damn, I'm blanking now. I totally had it. I blanked.
It sounds like it was fireworks in the air and fireworks on the field that day.
Oh,
That's pretty good.
boom.
I've got a few memories of watching sporting events in person that like were just really, really, really cool. So I'd been to a few MLS games in the States, but then last summer I went with my dad, brother, and uncle, and we went to the UK for the opening weekend of the Premier League. So we saw 3 games that weekend. So we saw United play Leicester. They won 1-0. So that was awesome. We were like the Old Trafford is just such a electric environment.
Oh,
it is
yeah.
just
I've heard.
it is just totally. There's just so many people there, and everybody just all the great chants and stuff, and it's just such a great experience. But after that, we went to Huddersfield Town, and we saw Huddersfield play Chelsea. And that was honestly more fun than the United game because Old Trafford is so big, and we were at the top decks at like the very top. And we were at Huddersfield. It's a smaller stadium, and we were pretty close to the field. And like when we walked to our seats, I could touch the field and like see all the players there. And so we were right in the middle of it, and that was just really, really cool. With all the fans there, they were like super passionate about like their hometown. They finally got promoted.
Yeah.
They're no longer in the Premier League anymore. But
while they were there,
they had a good time. Huddersfield, and then after hit the pubs.
Good times.
You know, they did get smacked by Chelsea, but you know, still great. And then the other one is this past May. Me and some of my buddies from my high school wrestling team, we drove down to Raleigh, North Carolina, for NC State. That's not Raleigh.
Yeah, it is.
Raleigh, yeah, it was Raleigh.
Mm-hmm.
And we watched the World Team Trials for wrestling. So I don't know. I'm sure you guys aren't super familiar with the process. So there's a bunch of tournaments leading up to the World Championships, which are actually happening right now in Kazakhstan. So there's a big process to qualify for the team, and the World Team Trials was one of the last tournaments before qualifying for the team. So it was some of the best wrestlers in the country trying to fight for a spot on the team. So it was all these guys that I watched throughout college and some of my like wrestling heroes, and it was in the stadium there, and they were just mixed in with the fans. So you'd be like sitting next to guys who you've seen wrestle for so long, and it's just crazy that they're like there. And I was talking with this one dude, Pat Downey, who made the world team. He is in Kazakhstan right now, representing the United States at 86 kilograms. So talked to him for a while. He was a pretty cool dude. Just like having that extra personal level of actually like interacting with the athletes and being right there was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And the wrestling was pretty awesome too.
Definitely.
Great environment.
Something in a similar vein. So with not really like that I'm not into wrestling at all, but the high school my high school girls soccer team, they've had the same coach, I guess, for a few years now, but it was one of his first years, and it was my senior year that they had a really good squad. The class from our year had like 3 D1 or D3 soccer commits and everything, and the same head coach was my basketball coach in freshman year. So I had seen these people, of course, throughout high school, and this they had the playoff tournament, which is the DC State Athletic Association tournament, and I guess like Sidwell, at least the girls team hasn't had too much success recently, but they've been on the come up, and essentially this year they were having some sort of like a miracle run, and they were being led by like all these seniors and stuff, and they're all going to like U Chicago, Bowdoin, and all these other nice schools for sports and all that. And it's like it's cold as ever. Like, yeah, the whole school's there because it's the championship game. They made it to, and they're playing St. John's, who their girls soccer team this year was godly. They were led by this one girl who went on to play for she's on like the U20 or U21 like USA national team.
Wow.
And she's I believe she's already signed with a like National Women's Soccer League team. Anyways, but she was insane, and I didn't realize which one she was in the first half until she was skilling over people and doing all that, like running circles, and it kind of became clear. So we fought a very, very tough game, and everyone was like dog tired, and it went into overtime, and it was just about to be they were just about to go to a shootout, right? So this girl who's insanely talented, she's screaming for the ball. It's like the dying moment of the game, like injury time of like extra time. She's like screaming for it, and she's at like midfield. So they get her the ball. She gets past our left back, takes a step from gotta be 40, 50 yards out, and she just absolutely like smacks that ball like something I've never seen before. And we had a keeper who is currently at Amherst playing soccer there. So she was a very good keeper throughout all of high school. She was like a 4-year starter, and she must have been playing a little out of position, but this no one was going to stop this. So this shot went into like the perfect top corner, and like she was diving and everything, and it like just stretched out her fingers. And like, even though like these are the people that I've been seeing in high school, and we just saw them like develop and just become so good over these 4 years. They came like so close. So sometimes like, you're on the winning side, you're on the losing side. This was like a true moment of greatness, I think, but just something that we were on the wrong side of. I couldn't even be mad. Like, it was like at Georgetown, so we were under the lights and everything, Georgetown University. Cool. But they ended up getting the dub and the priceless moment. But that was probably one of the greatest soccer games I've ever been to. But yeah. So thank you guys for listening to this trip down memory lane. And I know we've enjoyed it for sure. Yeah. It's been some really good memories for sure. Yeah.
And we want to hear from you too. Find us on Twitter and Instagram. Let us hear your stories. Drop some comments or replies. We want to hear from you too. We value you, and we thank you very much for listening.
All right. So last week we discussed the question of what is a sandwich, and there were some split opinions there. But this week we're gonna ask, what is an athlete? So maybe not in the same realm, but similar type of question, I'll say. When we think of an athlete, we usually have something in our heads. Like, you may think of your favorite professional athlete who plays one of the major 4 sports. You may think of the biggest jock at your high school or something like that, whatever the situation may be. But there's a point of contention, I feel, between some people who believe they're more of an athlete than other people, some people who think certain people are more of an athlete than others. So I'd like to kind of open the floor and discuss this and talk about maybe like what some of the identities for athletes may be and such.
So I thought it would be, I know like the meaning of like an athlete is pretty subjective for people, or is it objective? Subjective? It'd be subjective. Obviously, like not everybody's going to go by the dictionary definition, but I'm just going to throw the dictionary definition out there just so we can get that information out there. So the dictionary defines an athlete as a person who is proficient in sports and other forms of physical exercise. So for me, I'm kind of go by that definition pretty closely. It's hard for me to make like an exception towards that because they define it pretty well. Like I'll toss an idea out there. Like when I look at a chess player, like they're not really an athlete to me because chess isn't a physical activity. It's a mental game. I know it takes like incredible concentration, and you have to, and very, you have to use your noggin. You have to know, you have to know your opponent. You have to know what they're gonna do, and that's amazing. But I can't put it under like the scope of an athlete. And on top of that, you also have to kind of separate an athletic person and an athlete, because a person can be athletic, but they're not necessarily an athlete. Like buff dude that plays basketball at the gym with us every once in a while, he's athletic, he's buff.
Yeah.
Is he good at basketball?
No, he ain't good.
He's not necessarily good at basketball, so he's not athletic.
Our nickname for
He's not an athlete. Sorry.
Our nickname for him is Brick Squad. That
Yeah.
should give you an idea of what we're
And
working
how beautiful would it be if he listened to that?
with. He wouldn't know it was him.
That's right.
You know why? Because everybody throws up bricks at the rec.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, so looking at what athletes are. So I think most people would say that most of the members, if not all of the members of like the major 4 American sports leagues are considered athletes.
Yeah, I'd say that's
pretty-
Yeah.
And then like I'd venture to say that like soccer players are athletes.
Soccer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
okay, they got, yeah, I mean, they're athletes.
Why would they
Why
not
would that
be?
not
Why
be?
would-
Of course, yeah, of course they
Yeah,
are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
say
of course.
that.
He was scared he was going to get attacked. I'll give him that. No,
No,
soccer
but
players are
Soccer
athletes.
Yeah,
players
of
are
course.
100% athletes.
Yeah.
And then like, we start thinking of like we have cool different sports, and like I feel like different like cricket players are definitely athletes. I
Yeah.
feel.
Yes.
But would you like? I feel like there are lines there because we have people that play frisbee, and I think that they probably would be considered athletes. But what's the difference? But where's the line if we consider something like that an athlete, but something else like not, like if we're talking about like a chess player. I mean, chess players, I just looked it up. Grand chess masters burn 6,000 to 7,000 calories a day when playing chess.
That's
But-
how you burn that much calories playing chess.
You can't be comparing Ultimate Frisbee
Yeah.
and chess, though. That is just two different.
They are
ballparks.
different.
Just
yes, for
just
sure.
for some
Elegancy.
background, me and Ethan Dewald over here, we're both on the Frisbee team at William and Mary.
Shout out Dark Horse.
Shout out
Yeah.
Dark
Shout out
Horse.
Dark Horse.
It can be a grind sometimes. Like you
Oh my
gotta
God.
be in really, really good shape to be good, and it's just a lot of running. Definitely a sport.
For sure.
Yeah, I will say that my definition of an athlete is independent of my definition of a sport, because I know we've had this conversation like privately, but I'm kind of like a stickler when it comes to what I consider to be a sport per se. But I have a much more broad definition when it comes to being an athlete, because like a lot of things that many people think are sports, I'll say like, no, that's not a sport. That's an athletic competition. Like
Yeah.
swimming, I don't technically qualify as a sport, but it's an athletic competition.
Okay.
And like,
would you say the same for like cheerleading as
yeah,
well?
I'd say the same thing
Okay.
for
What about
cheerleading.
like sprinting? Like a
Yeah,
sprinter?
like track is an athletic competition, but I wouldn't
But
consider it a
Usain Bolt
sport.
is an athlete,
Yes,
but he doesn't play a sport.
That's
what
correct.
you're saying.
Correct.
yes.
Interesting.
Those can
I
be
don't
independent
know.
of each other.
I don't know either.
That's
I don't know. I don't know how I feel.
That's an
about that, Jeff.
interesting distinction, but I really don't know if I agree.
I mean, I mean, I can give my definition of sport. Like the way I see a sport is that it has to have, obviously, like some physical components. That automatically rules out like chess, just not a sport.
Yeah.
And then it also, for me, has to have an offense and a defense, or I have to be able to impact something that, or I have to be able to have some sort of impact on your performance. And so, just based on that, like if you're sprinting like an 800-meter race, there's nothing that I can do within the rules of the competition to make you any like less successful. Like it's just dependent on how good I am and how good you are, just going straight against each other. So I don't technically consider that a sport, but I think people put way too much value in the word sport anyway. Like you can be an athlete and not participate in a sport, if that makes sense.
All right, I got a question. So, what about professional cycling? Because listen.
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
So you can impact how other people do, but it's focused on how you do. You can impact other people based on like drafting and
Right.
riding in packs, and you can like separate the pack or like leave a person behind and kind of leave them stranded. That definitely is an impact
No.
on the race. So by your logic, that would be a sport, right?
I don't see why not.
So what's the difference between that and cross country? is like cross country a sport then?
Cross country and like track and field are different things.
So you say cross country is a sport?
Cross country is much closer to a sport by my definition than track and field. I'm just like I kind of, but like I don't know. Like I know cross country. I don't run cross country, but I know that like it has like that sort of stuff, and I just don't know enough about it to make like a judgment in that way. Cycling, I do know enough about to say like that's like a sport, but I'm not. I don't know about cross country
because I don't know if you can say, comparing track and cross country, that one's a sport and one's not a sport. I feel like if one's a sport, then the other's not.
I don't think so.
And I kind of disagree with you on like those Olympic style events like swimming or skiing or whatever. Like I still think of them as sports.
I consider them
like
sports,
sporting events.
Yeah, sporting. I mean,
they're sporting events. A sporting event is a sport.
Not necessarily.
Interesting. So the thing that I would compare, because I agree, the very apt comparison between cycling and cross country in that way. Do you all know who Mo Farah is by any chance?
Oh yeah,
marathon runner, right? So he participates in the 10K in the Olympics. That is definitely among the same vein of a cross country race, because there's the same situation where running impacts when you decide to kick, when you decide to take it easy and all that. He's an artist at what he does, in what I've seen at least. Not that I'm a big marathon watcher, but
boring as hell.
but I have a distinct memory of watching him in like 2012 and stuff like that.
He's ridiculous.
But something like that, which takes place in the track and field realm, would involve those kinds of factors.
So I mean, I can break it down even farther. I can say that like sprinting like 100 meters is not a sport. That's an athletic competition.
But running like an 1,000 would be.
I mean, yeah, because if you think of 100 meters, it's just who's the fastest, not am I going to cut this guy off, because you have to stay in your lane. Like,
well, at the same time, it's not like you're ghost running. So I feel like there's a point in your argument which I could see you making, and there's one that I don't. So in the 100 meter, for example, like Usain Bolt is running next to the greatest sprinters in the world. He's not, doing his solo sprint hoping it's better than like everyone else just doing their own thing. They're going side by side. And I feel like that's different than maybe the if we want to like go into like skiing or something like that. I feel like that's different than something like that, where you're racing the clock as opposed to
I mean there's like, I don't know, there's just some sports that I guess
it's a weird line. I'm kind of pushing the envelope.
I don't know where
here.
the line is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, like track and field's kind of hard for me, like especially the running portions, because it's hard for like running is just a natural human motion. It's how we get away. Our ancestors got away from predators, so they're just kind of like it's like you're turning like a natural human motion into like an event, and I don't know. It's just like something doesn't sit right with me with calling like running a sport. I don't know that like I consider cross country a sport, but like I don't know. It's kind of tough because you call them sporting events. Like I would call like track and field sporting events, but then it's like there's certain things in track and field that are hard to call a sport, like the 100 meter. Like it's really hard for me to call that a sport.
Are javelin throwers?
Yeah, it's like,
is that a sport?
I mean, they're athletes.
That's
definitely
tough,
not a sport.
Yeah, like some of them are really hard for me.
I feel like they are athletes.
Yeah,
I feel like,
all these people that we've talked about are
all of
athletes.
them are
Yes.
athletes.
You don't want to disrespect any track and field
No, I couldn't do it.
athletes.
No.
As evidenced by me not doing it.
So I've got a question for you. What are your opinions on NASCAR, sport or no?
Okay, so we were actually talking about this earlier. I have to go no sport.
See, that goes against your rule, though.
It doesn't go against my rule.
yes, it does.
How does it go
actually
against my
does.
rule?
Very clearly goes against.
Very
How does it go
What's the
against
difference
my rule?
between cycling and NASCAR, except for one's in a
Cycling,
car
you're
and one's
using
in
physical activity, and I don't want to hear
Okay.
about G-forces. I don't count that. That's like,
Come on.
I don't want to hear that.
Okay, you're controlling the bike. It's not like a human is wheeling themselves at whatever, like
But
20
you can
miles
run
an
out
hour
of
they're going.
you can run out of gas, quote unquote, like with cycling. If you don't have the power to keep pedaling and like pace yourself throughout, then you run out. Where like you run out of gas in your car, you pull over, you put gas in it, and you continue going.
Yeah, for me, NASCAR doesn't meet the physical requirements.
NASCAR's more of like just a competition.
Yeah.
Really.
Have you
Like-
seen Tony Stewart? You're telling me that dude's an athlete?
Yeah. No,
He's pretty rotund.
I agree. Like,
Takes a lot of effort to turn
NASCAR, definitely not a
Like
sport.
I know it's not in the same realm, but like drag racing is. I mean, I know obviously drag race doesn't take as long as a NASCAR race, but it's still like the same premise. Like you're you're racing. I mean, it's just
and it's all about the car, not necessarily the driver.
Exactly.
Like the driver's ability has very little to, like, relatively. There should be no impact between like this person's car and this person's car. They should be the same.
I guess I shouldn't compare drag racing with NASCAR because drag racing you're not interfering with the person, but still it's kind of like the same realm to me.
It's kind of like a 100-yard dash.
For cars.
It's literally the same thing, just for the car.
Yeah.
Except you don't have to be an athlete to do those.
Right.
I'm willing to concede that NASCAR racing is probably not a sport. It's more more along the lines of a competition.
I wouldn't even call it like a physical competition. I would just call it a competition.
A competition, interesting. Yeah. Because this is the thing. Do we consider chess? So are they athletes? Is the question.
NASCAR drivers?
Yes.
I mean, I would say that you don't have to be an athlete to be a NASCAR driver, but there are NASCAR drivers who are in good shape and are athletic.
Same goes for golf.
Is being athletic the same as being an athlete, though?
I don't know if we've really...
Because like I said, buff dude at the rec, he's athletic. He's obviously buff and in good shape, but he's not athlete. He's not a good athlete because he's not good at a sport that he's playing.
I'm more turning it the other way though, because I feel like there can be. I don't know.
I see what
like,
you said.
Think about baseball players. We all were in agreement that all baseball players pretty much are athletes.
I wouldn't say that all baseball players
is Pablo
are athletes.
Sandoval an athlete?
No, that guy's not an athlete.
How?
I mean, he is an athlete because
he is an athlete.
I mean, I would not say he's athletic, but he is an athlete because
by
he excels.
He is an athlete
because
it's his profession.
He excels at a specific skill in a sport, which would be, in his case, hitting a baseball. But he's not necessarily athletic.
Yeah. So for the argument, I have to go back to the definition. So like, it's a person who is proficient in sports and other forms of physical exercise. So technically, like, let's look at like, I don't know, like David Ortiz, right?
Sure. Yeah.
He's a big fella, right? I wouldn't call him athletic, but he is an athlete because he's proficient in baseball. So that's how I would say that argument.
Now, taking that same argument, a chess player is very proficient at playing chess.
I don't know why people are trying to push chess as a sport.
Who's out here trying to say chess players are athletes?
I'm not trying to say that.
You gotta play devil's advocate.
I am simply playing devil's advocate here and seeing where, because this is, to be frank, I don't know where the line is. I really don't.
The line is definitely before chess. I'll say that.
And if it's before chess, I would assume, even though it's in the name, it would be before mathletes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be before
mathletes.
So, what?
I didn't know if we had any mathletes in the room.
I'm a math major. Mathletes, get out. Like, you're not an
Bro, I did
Get
I did 24 club in middle school. I not athletes.
Math counts captain 2 years here. Mathletes, not athletes. Can solidly say that. I am an athlete that is also a mathlete because I play other sports and I happen to also be a mathlete at that time.
But if you're solely a mathlete,
but if you're solely a mathlete, then no, you're not an athlete. I'm sorry to tell you.
I'm going to toss this out just because Raymond brought it up earlier. I already know my answer. I feel like I know everybody else's answer, but I'm still going to toss it out. So what about like pro gaming? That wouldn't be a sport.
No,
because I wouldn't call that.
I wouldn't call that a sport. It has it has like the offense defense aspect, but I wouldn't say it has the physical aspect.
So
I think
I'm
you're really oppressing the gamers. Right?
We are oppressed.
I mean, I would say there is obviously like some level of hand-eye coordination that you need to have.
Yes, which
but,
is
like, 8-year-olds have that.
Which is where the question that I must ask is, I feel like, the gaming question, right? It's a question of hand-eye coordination, skill, all that. I'm saying that it's not a sport. I'm saying that they're not athletes. At the same time, isn't baseball a game of hand-eye coordination and stuff like that?
I mean,
but it also has running.
There's way more than just hand-eye coordination in baseball.
Hand-eye coordination is a big part.
I think
it is in video games.
In order for something,
the only part.
It is the only part. That's the thing.
In order for something,
gamers are not athletes.
In order for something to count like as a sport, or for you to be considered an athlete, for you to be like proficient at something, to be labeled an athlete, there has to be, in my opinion, a quite physical requirement in there. Now, obviously, that varies based on sports, because, I mean, like, baseball, people will talk shit about baseball, saying, like, oh, you're standing still, you're not doing, all day long. However, being a baseball player, now I played in the outfield, but I also played pitcher and third base. yes, a lot of the time it's not soccer where you're running constantly. I have tremendous respect for soccer players because I could never do what they do. Just because I don't play it doesn't mean that it's not that I don't appreciate it. Baseball players don't run around as much. Even football players. Like, football is known for being a very, very physical sport. I play football. I can tell you, you're only sprinting for like however many seconds at a time, and then you have big breaks. Mm-hmm. So even big sports like that, you're not running all the time. So obviously it varies based on sport, but you have to be able to have that physical component that you have to be able to complete in addition to besting your opponent, besting their defense, and scoring more points or objectives than your opponent. You have to have those three concepts, in my opinion, for something to qualify as a sport. Chess and gaming have little to no physical at all. They have a lot of mental. Like, it takes skill to do what they're doing. It's not like I'm not trying to disrespect them in that way, but because I definitely can't be a pro gamer. I don't have that. I can't do that. So it's definitely impressive, but it's not it's not a sport. You're not an athlete for that sort of thing.
I'll say this about baseball. And in terms of athleticism and hand-eye coordination, all in that vein. I don't know if y'all saw a few months ago when Giannis visited Yankee Stadium and they put him in a batting cage and threw some pitches to him. I don't know if you saw what he looked like when he was trying to hit a baseball. One of the best athletes in the world looked like an absolute fool trying to hit a baseball.
Sure, yeah.
And like, I don't know, because this is just me kind of like getting a little defensive about the sport that I play.
Yeah.
Because like people talk shit about baseball all the time. It's like, oh, it's so easy, you just stand around, and like I have seen people who play other sports like try and play like I am softball or just like hit anything, and it's just pathetic. Like you can get the buffest, like hugest dude on the football team, and odds are he's gonna look like an idiot trying to hit a baseball. Yeah. So I think that's an underappreciated aspect of baseball. Yeah.
All right, I've got a question. What do you guys think about like dancers or cheerleaders in the vein of are they athletes?
I believe that dancers and cheerleaders are athletes. I'm willing to fight people on this because I feel like there's a great deal of all of the qualifiers that we've just expressed as qualifiers for athletes in these respective competitions.
The only thing I would say is sometimes like it's hard whether or not because it's on the borderline for dance at least between being a sport and being like an art.
An art, performance kind of situation.
And best kind of dance is both. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say that dance and cheerleading are both activities that are susceptible to be participated in by people who are athletes or who are athletic. But I would not say, as an umbrella statement, that every dancer and every cheerleader is an athlete or is athletic.
I would say, like, good dancers or dancers that put in a lot of time and effort. Like, the people that have been doing it since they were, yay high little ones all the way through, sometimes to their professional career. That takes, you have to stay in shape, you have to be athletic. I would be comfortable saying that they are athletes. I think you can comfortably say that cheerleaders and dancers are athletes. I do agree that dance kind of borders on the edge of art, but that's kind of just the nature of the beast. Cheerleading, I will not say that the two activities are sports. I can confidently say they are not sports, but the people that participate are athletic or athletes, because I just think it goes to yes, you're trying to perform against other people, but in the end, it's simply who is better. There's no competitive. So these people that say like competition cheer is a sport, like, not really. You don't really even have anything you're specifically cheering for. You're literally just doing glorified gymnastics, in my opinion.
So do you think gymnastics is not a sport at that point?
Gymnasts are some of the most insane athletes that I can know and see that walk the earth. So they're incredibly athletic, and I will fight till the day I die say they are athletes. However, I do think I have to just go back to similar to the track and field aspect. Like, they're athletic events. They are stuff that not everyone can do. You have to be truly specialized. You have to train. You have to put in the time. You have to be physically fit and all that sort of stuff. But in the end, it's you against someone else. It's not truly like I'm trying to best you at the same time. So I can't call that a sport. No.
Yeah, so like ice skating, gymnastics, cheer, and dancing, for me, they all fall under that athletic competition category that we kind of talked about earlier. Like the people that participate in them for the most part are definitely athletes, or they're definitely athletic, and you can consider them athletes, but I don't think I could refer to them as like sports, what they play in.
Yeah,
it's hard for me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, especially like by my definition. Like for me, I would consider something like competition cheer or figure skating to a field event like the hammer throw or the shot put, where you go out there and do your thing and hope that it's good enough to be what everybody else does. And like, you can't, what are you going to do? Like, until you can start running out on like, you know, the pommel horse and start like tackling people while they're running down up to it. Like, there's nothing you can do to impact their score. You just have to, you know, hope that yours is better and train to like maximize the probability of you being better than them.
On the similar line, I know there was always this group of people at my high school, and I'm kind of assuming here, going out on a limb, saying that this is other high schools, marching band. Considered, or competition band, considered a sport or no? I have my answer. I have my confident answer, but I want to kind of inquire the group here and see what you think. Competition / marching band.
Yeah.
Is it a sport?
Full disclosure, I did marching band my first 2 years of high school. I hated it, so I quit.
Let's go.
And one of the things I hated about it the most was that people were like, oh yeah, this is a sport. Or like in the marching band, I was like, no, this is not a sport. You just like to call it a sport because you're not actually athletic enough to do any other like real sports. So I would say it is absolutely not a sport. Athletic competition, maybe, because it is hard. I will tell you, it is hard on the body. But like, that's not a sport. Don't come at me with that.
Yeah, so I'm kind of on the same boat. Not a sport, and I wouldn't even call it an athletic competition. I wouldn't call them athletes. And no offense, I wouldn't call them athletic, because my marching band at Hickory, it was a very like well-known marching band, but I've seen the people that are in it, and I can, by firsthand experience, I can say that most of them are not athletic, because I've played basketball with a lot of them before. I can see that they're not athletic. Now, when it's like 90 degrees out there and you're marching and you're walking out there on the football field, that is hard as hell to do, and I've seen people pass out from it before.
Oh, yeah,
my good friend Sean passed out doing marching band.
Oh, Sean.
And,
Rip Sean.
And I mean, it's definitely. I'm not trying to discredit anything they do. It is definitely hard to go out there in the blazing heat, march around. But for me, I can't call them athletes. I can't call them athletic, and marching band isn't a sport.
Do you think that leans more towards like the art side, like what we were bringing up with dance?
That's
Do you think it's more on the arts?
It's more on the art side, but I can't lump it in with like dance and stuff like that. It's farther away than dance and stuff.
Guys, is athleticism a spectrum?
I would say that athleticism is indeed a spectrum.
Yeah,
because like you would have guys like Pablo Sandoval and David Ortiz, and like on the low end of the athleticism spectrum, and then you would have people like Gabby Douglas and like, I don't know, other famous gymnasts on the high end of the spectrum.
Yeah,
and then you got everyone else
just
in
put
the
like the freak athletes, like, you know, your Giannis's of the world.
Your Ethan Roos.
Yeah, you're Ethan Roos.
Your Ethan Roos of the
You're
world.
Bryce Whitney.
Definitely.
I love you, Bryce.
But yeah, so yeah, I also would say that the only thing I can concede is that there's a degree of difficulty that goes along with marching band.
Oh,
No,
and
there
I
is.
agree.
I feel like there's no disputing that point, but yeah, it's hard. I'm hard pressed to call them
I'm
athletes.
all on board, and full disclosure, my girlfriend is a marching band person.
Shout out,
She's
shout
5'6". Love you, babe. She was the bass drum in an indoor drum line, and she was like the smallest person out there, and she was the bass drum. So
That's a
I
big
know
one,
for a
too.
fact that there's a lot going into that and a lot of physical activity. So I'm totally not discrediting anything about it, but I'm on the same boat. Like, marching band, not a sport.
It's also just not close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're not athletic because they do, like, there's definitely athletic people that do marching band, but they're not athletic because they do marching band. It's because they're in the gym and stuff like that.
Yeah. You don't get athletic by
playing
doing
the
marching
tuba or
band. You can be an athlete and do the marching band,
Yeah.
but you can't. It's not
yeah, that's
same
pretty
way.
much my stance on it.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question. I'm not gonna
yeah,
lie.
I like
I
that.
didn't realize how multifaceted
Yeah,
and how broad the issue is. But yeah. So this has been a very, very fun episode here.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, we didn't get into like the hardcore like nitty gritty statistics this time.
Hey,
Yeah.
man, I didn't have to bring my laptop. That makes it
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so this has been a good episode. I've been joined by,
Brandon LaRocco.
Ethan Rue.
Joey Bohley.
Ethan Dewald.
and I'm Abhishek Goel. I'll see you next week.
Let's blow this popsicle
Let's blow this popsicle stand.